Alright geezers, it's push day, so chest aka tits, delts aka delts, and triceps, basically everything you need for a t-shirt to fit 2 sizes tighter. I'm dropping plenty of actual practical tips through the session so you can get growing these areas. So let's dive in. Watch your head on the way in though, yeah? Cool. Let's go. More of a shoulders focused push day, a fair bit on chest as well, but more shoulder focused. We've already started off with a Y raise, which I'll speak about in a minute. Had to kind of mix up the exercise sequence just because the gym's busy. The next exercise now is this shoulder press. I'm going to do another warm-up set with this, and then we'll get into a working set. And I'll just kind of speak to you about my positioning on this movement now compared to what it was. So, you'll see with my positioning, I've run this before with like a neutral grip rather than a pronated grip. And what you can very easily do, especially if you've got other stronger pushing musculature, like if you have your hips slightly further forward and you're more kind of like depressing your scapula and using your lats, pressing at this angle, one, you're doing more of like a horizontal press because you're just pressing like an incline flat press motion, so the chest can do a lot of the work. Also, you think about the leverage of the machine, like the handle's here, the weight's there, so you can shift a lot of weight. Like here, I could literally do God knows how many plates side, or I've done like 5 each side. Whereas here, being completely upright, you know, having this more abducted position with my upper arm, it's going to feel a lot harder. So the amount of weight I lift is going to be a lot less, but what I'm trying to target, you know, I don't care how much weight I can lift. I purely care about how much stimulus I can get to the front delts and a bit of the side delts as well. You'll see a lot less weight on the machine, but a lot more stimulus, and that's the goal. I need bigger delts. My top set, I'm only actually going to use 3 plates, which sounds really light, and it is, but you'll see when I'm doing this, I'm really focusing on actually lengthening the delt. So making sure I come the whole way down here, right? Like, it's very easy to chase load all the time. Or like you see when people do a dumbbell shoulder press, right? Because the dumbbell's really blocky, you only have to come to here. So if you think about where your elbows are in relation to your body, right, they're not that low. So you see people pressing really heavy weight with the dumbbells and the shoulders are still small. And that's why you see people doing like barbell overhead press when they come right down the clavicles. It's not a coincidence that, you know, they're using lighter loads, but the shoulders are really big, right? So I'm just making sure that when I run this now, I standardize, coming the whole way down, stretching the delt, and, you know, progressively overloading, standardizing that form. You'll see I've got blocks in the machine now, and that's purely just to help me on the first rep, because with this I know it's going to be a challenging load, somewhere probably between 6 and 10 reps, and if I start from the very bottom, it's very hard to get out, so I won't count the first rep, and then, you know, it kind of sets me up in a good position, then I can make sure I get the most out of the set. Baby weights. Come on.
Go on, one more. You got one more. Go on, push it.
Yeah, we'll take it. Felt good. Kept the form honest. Vertical presses are generally quite difficult to progress. You know, you've only got, you know, really your front delt, bit side delt, tricep working if you're doing it right. Your ability to overload, having a machine like this where you can add a smaller percentage of load onto the machine. Like if you had 1.25 kilos compared to 120 kilos that's on a machine in comparison to, say, a barbell shoulder press using 60 kilos, that percentage is obviously greater. So adding a little bit of weight isn't going to feel as much, and you can keep that progression model like in place. You can actually progress. So that's another thing you got to think about when you're selecting exercises. Can you actually progress it over a period, like a long period of time? And if you're every time you add weight, you're regressing reps by multiple reps, maybe not the best model in place. In terms of rep ranges I work in, like I like to get stronger in a variety of different rep ranges. So it depends on what exercise I'm doing, how safe I feel in each exercise. Typically isolations, like I won't sandbag it and just always work in higher rep ranges. And with the compounds, I won't always work in lower rep ranges. Here, I did a top set of 6-7 reps, which is a little bit lower than I'd like to go. And now I'm doing a back off set. I'll typically drop the weight by around 20%. I won't use the blocks on this set either because I'm working that higher rep range. I should be able to get it out without blocks. Now I've said that, I'm probably going to struggle, but yeah, it should be all right. Rep ranges are one of them. As long as you're not taking things to the extremes of like 50 reps or failing 1 rep maxes, you're going to get a pretty similar result. Obviously, the heavier the weight, you might get a bit more mechanical tension, but we're talking very small details. As long as you're working in anywhere really from 1 and 30, 35 reps, results are going to be quite similar. As long as you can actually take that set to a close proximity of muscular failure, you're going to be sound.
This movement here, being the lying Y raise with cables, is a really good movement, not just for side delt and rear delt development, but the main thing for me is just for the shoulder health. It strengthens the lower traps, which will massively help with shoulder stability, as the lower traps are heavily responsible for scapular depression. The mid traps are worked too, which is key for scapular retraction. And of course, the rotator cuff muscles too, that's going to keep the humeral head centered in the socket. So overall, a wicked movement that's going to minimize injury risk, improve posture too, which is definitely something I'm really working on at the minute.
So with this movement, chest fly, I'm doing it single arm because personally I have like issues stabilizing my shoulder joint. So focusing on doing like 1 pec at a time unilaterally, it allows me to focus on keeping that side of my upper back tight, keep the tension on the pec. When I do it bilateral with more load, it's very easy for me to lose tightness and lose tension on my pec. So that's why I do it single arm. You see when I'm doing it, I have one arm on the other handle here, and that's because I could do it by just having my hand on my hip or something like that, like other people do. For me, like, you always want to make sure you're stable from the floor up. So especially as you get stronger, if you're relying on yourself to keep yourself planted in the ground with heavier weight, it's likely your hips are going to move around, and that's going to affect up the change. So I'd rather just kind of counteract here, like not put too much pressure against it, but it's a little bit, and that will just kind of help me stabilize myself. Yeah, I try, and you probably see that I spend a second in the lengthened, then when I come across, I'm thinking about just literally driving my bicep, getting my elbow, my humerus across the midline and spending a second there as well. So yeah, just 2 sets, 10 to 15 reps, and got 12 there. Probably just do the same weight, hit around 10, and then we'll get into the next compound movement. Only 1 compound for the chest this session. I think what's really important with chest training is actually making sure you're using your chest. Sounds very obvious and probably a bit stupid, but it's very common for people to have very developed front delts, very developed triceps, and not a lot of chest. I think that the common issue is people not having much scapular control. Their shoulders kind of roll forward when they're doing things. I actively try and think all the time, like sternum up, chest high, make sure I retract so I can lengthen the pec, control that change of direction, and then come across. If I just try and lift as much weight as I can, no doubt I could do a hell of a lot of weight. And you know, my chest and my quads probably my stronger muscle groups, and it's no coincidence that I have a very good mind muscle connection to them muscle groups. You know, before you start chasing loads, you know, lifting as heavy as you can, or just even if you're not lifting like ego lifting, just make sure you're actually connected to that muscle group before you overload it. Is this music getting you pumped? It's bad at it.
Fucking 1970s porno.
Think as well what's important with not just flies but presses as well, that you allow your scapula to move in its like natural scapular humeral rhythm. But what that basically means is don't like keep your shoulder blades jammed back and down all times, but equally don't just let them, you know, protract and do whatever they want. So you need like control over that, kind of let a little bit of natural movement happen. So when I come across, I'm not thinking jam back, I'm not thinking protract forward, I'm just thinking get the elbow across, my scapula is gonna have to come forward a little bit to fully shorten the pec, and it's just about getting that balance right. You'll know when it's right because it will just feel right. This is where exercise sequence plays a big role. So I've just finished a single arm pec fly, and now I'm going straight into a chest press. Obviously I won't be able to move as much weight as I normally could, especially after doing a press already, doing the Y raise. But that's intentional. If you work around an injury, you got to think, yeah, get the more out of less weight, maximize the stimulus, and minimize an injury risk. If I didn't have any kind of issues, I wouldn't be training like this. So if you don't have anything like that, then you can just do a normal approach and get straight into your compound and maximize the most amount of mechanical tension you can get by pretty much lifting as heavy as you can with, you know, good form and being safe. But for me, that's not on the cards, so I have to work around it. Like warm up, this is going to dictate what weight I do. Yeah, might do the stack. Yeah. Don't feel too bad. Handles are never even. You know, the rubber grips.
No, they keep coming off.
Last compound movement of the session, we're biasing the triceps, so we're using a close grip dumbbell press. I would prefer to do it with a barbell or a Smith, but I get a bit more shoulder pain, so having that neutral grip tucks my elbows in a little bit more, it feels a little bit safer. Still don't feel amazing, but I feel like I need to do some form of close grip press. This last portion of the session, we're just in the dumbbell area, just because I can get through the session a little bit quicker. I don't really need to complicate things. Some people argue the resistance profile of these exercises aren't ideal for the time in the session, blah, 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 but you know what? I think you're talking details that probably don't matter too much for at least the majority of people.
Dumbbell skull crushers is often a movement that I see gets butchered all the time. So here's a very, very good tip to maximize the stimulus to that long head on the tricep.
I'd say the main mistake to avoid is when you're doing it, just don't let your upper arm move around a lot. Because when you're coming down, if your upper arm's kind of stretching up like this, you're just elongating the lats, which is taken away from what we're trying to do. So you'll see when I'm doing this, my upper arm is literally fixed. It's not completely at 90 degrees because I'm not trying to bring the dumbbell down to my head. It's at a slight angle so I can get a bit more stretch on that long head, lengthen the tricep as much as I can, and then come up. And I'll just try and pause in the stretch, keep the reps as continuous as I can. And yeah, that's that. With the lateral raise, obviously this is the second variation in the session, so just 2 sets here, high rep sets. With a lateral raise, everyone knows you don't need heavy weights, but literally I'm going to use 7.5 kilo dumbbells. And I'm just going to think about making sure, go for a full range, controlling both ends of the rep, and just take some partials at the end of the set as well, just to further batter, you know, that side delt, because to be honest, you know, they're going to be able to take a bit of a hammer and they can recover quite quickly. So it makes sense just to, you know, completely annihilate them, to be honest. Another thing I make sure of is I make sure my shoulder doesn't like internally rotate. My pinkies aren't kind of like pointing up like this. And also I make sure that my thumbs aren't pointing up in an externally rotated position. So I just think about keeping everything neutral and driving out with my palms flat. That way the side delt's on top and we're working that medial delt.
If you've made it this far in the video, thank you for watching. To support me, what you can do is use my code PWBRAD at checkout at Protein World. That'll get you 40% off. Also, the fact that I never plug that I do online coaching, I should probably start doing it. So as you can see, Complete Physique's there. If you want help with your training at a very affordable rate, then go into the description, have a look and apply using the application form, and we'll go from there. But yeah, thank you for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you soon.